Hey man, we gotta talk about some things. We had a fantastic call today in the Conscious Men community, and we ultimately got to the topic of cold approaching. And the lens of which we talked about it was completely different from any other lens that I have personally ever seen. So, the call started out today with a member he basically had his first plant medicine experience. And I've said this in the past, I'm not a plant medicine evangelist by any means. I do believe that it's a fantastic tool. If you've never brushed shoulders with the divine, or have ever had a objective spiritual experience of any kind, this can absolutely trigger that. But in the call, he was just talking about how it can be a difficult experience. It brings all these things to the surface. You're forced to face those darker corners of your subconscious that maybe you've never known was there or you've avoided looking at. But when you do it with intention, it can be this very powerful, life-changing thing. So some people can take plant medicine just recreationally. Like, hey bro, you want to take 2 grams of mushrooms and watch the game at Hooters? And yeah, you can have a little recreational experience, but you're missing out on the power of this medicine to connect you to something much deeper if you're trying to find yourself, find your purpose. And then the next conversation was with a guy, and he talked about cold approaching. And essentially we drew this parallel of how cold approaching can be like a psychedelic plant medicine trip in and of itself, especially for men. I'm a firm believer that cold approaching is one of the best things that a man can do for his life in terms of cultivating courage, cultivating self-confidence, being forced to face the demons of your own fear of rejection, especially when it comes to fear of rejection from the feminine specifically. That can be terrifying for men. A lot of the most profound plant medicine experiences, people will have something called an ego death, where you come face to face with these sides of yourself, these past wounds, and you're faced with a choice to either surrender to it and let those things come to the surface and face it and heal. It's like surgery. Or you can fight against it. And anytime someone's like, yeah, I had a bad trip on ayahuasca or mushrooms or something like that, it's usually because they resisted what it was trying to bring to the surface for them, what it was trying to bring up from the depths of their subconscious so they could face it. Cold approaching, very powerful medicine for a man. The manosphere, red pill content, it paints something like cold approaching kind of like how a lot of people would take mushrooms, a recreational thing, to do it just to kind of gain an experience. A lot of men treat cold approaching like it's just only to get something. You want to be a taker. You want to take from women. You want to possess them. You want to be able to add them to your body count. Because let's face it, yes, it is difficult for a man to sleep with a lot of beautiful women who are deemed high quality. But it's not an accomplishment. It is on the lower density of things, but obviously if you're on this channel and you watch my videos, you're kind of teetering on the fence between that lower third density of just ego, service to self, versus the next level of things, which is heart-based consciousness, which isn't you versus the world. It isn't men versus women. It's realizing that the true essence of who you are is also in other people. and you're moving more from a place of love, which also means loving yourself, doing what's best for you, what puts you in the optimal environment to grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And speaking for myself, cold approaching was one of those things for me. It really forced me to face those darker aspects of myself that was just terrified of rejection. When a man sees a beautiful woman and he decides to cold approach her, if he's never done this before, the fear that he feels in his mind, his body, his nervous system is akin to jumping out of an airplane. You feel that fight or flight response. You're in the sympathetic nervous system, like your life is in danger. And this is low-hanging fruit. This allows you to face your fears, knowing that you're actually safe. Unless the woman is a bona fide serial killer, the worst thing that you're probably facing is some kind of rejection that's mean. Which even that is rare. Most women, if they're going to reject you, they'll do it in a more subtle way. You know, they'll be standoffish and you can pick up on it and just be like, oh, have a nice day. If you start approaching women and doing it in a non-creepy way, but in a way that shows that, hey, you're a man and you find them attractive, you can walk up to them and be like, hey, I know this is random. I just thought you were attractive and I wanted to say hi. That's it. And then spark the conversation. She's either going to be receptive to it or she's not. If you do this 100 times, I guarantee you that you're going to unlock a part of yourself that is courageous. You'll start to cultivate a level of confidence. And then the next level, of course, is you'll realize the gaps in your social skills. You'll realize, oh, I'm really bad at just holding a conversation. I need to get better at asking questions or doing this or doing that. And this will carry over into your entire life. You'll start to live life more fearlessly. That is the power of cold approaching for men. And, you know, you can face some demons this way. There's a lot of lonely men in the world, but a lot of those men really aren't taking action, and they're not putting themselves in uncomfortable situations. They're staying in their comfort zone. They're holding on to their vices. They'll just stay home and play video games or watch pornography. I've said this before in previous videos, but I went through a season shortly after I split with my partner that I was with for like 10 years, and I was rusty in terms of social skills and approaching women, and I went for it. I would go to bars by myself with the mission to, starting out, it wasn't just approaching women. I was just like, let me start to spark up conversations with strangers. This is terrifying. I feel uncomfortable. I feel like an idiot. But I've got all this fear within me. I'm tired of being afraid. I want to learn how to connect with human beings. And so it started there. I started doing that. And then, just like anything, any kind of exposure therapy, any kind of exercise, whether it's lifting weights, I started to grow that muscle. I started to have a degree of competence and confidence when it came to cold approaching strangers. And eventually I was getting to a point where I could approach entire groups of beautiful women, a group of 5 women, walk up to them, break the ice. And it really doesn't even matter what you say. I know it's always like, oh, but what do I say? When you give off a vibe of confidence and authenticity, that cuts through more than anything. But I would approach a group and just be like, you guys look like you're having a lot of fun. I just wanted to see what all the fuss is about. It's like, what does that even mean? It doesn't matter. And oftentimes, whenever I would approach a whole group of women like that, even if 4 out of 5 of them were kind of in like a negative state, like, oh, it's a man, leave us alone. If there was even one who was positive, because this happened, 1 out of 5 of the women would be like, why are you so confident? I like this. What's your name? And then all the other girls would kind of follow suit because there was some social proof there. And during all of this, I learned to be completely detached from the outcome. My goal and purpose was to connect with human beings, to be authentic, and to be loving. To be very present and speak to them from a heart level that was also fun and light. And from this energy, I started to cultivate experiences, turning strangers into friends. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy starting out. I felt like an idiot when I first started doing this, but then it became as natural as anything. And once I cultivated that level of courage and confidence within myself, I wasn't as aggressive with it. I wasn't like going out to bars by myself with the intention of talking to strangers. But what it did do, it gave me the ability to just live my life. If I was at the supermarket, a coffee shop, if I saw a beautiful woman, or just someone I was intrigued by in general, I had that tool in my toolbox to be able to approach them with authenticity. This can literally change you. This can change the fabric of your whole life. It can start to unlock parts and pieces of your personality that you didn't know were hidden beneath the surface. I am inherently an introvert. I can spend weeks by myself and feel fine. I enjoy my own company. And growing up, I was shy. And these things were not natural for me. These are things that I intentionally cultivated over time. So there are resources out there. You can read books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, but nothing will teach you how to be more open in the world towards other people than just putting these things into practice. If you're in a lonely season right now, if you feel sad because you have lack of human connection, there's a beautiful quote from the Course in Miracles that says, "Only what I have not given can ever be lacking." I know that it would feel good to have a stranger come up to you without any agenda, just sparking up a conversation, whether it's a cool dude who is like friendship material or a beautiful woman. I know that that would feel amazing. You can become that person, okay? Stop wishing and hoping that you would encounter people like that and just become that person. That's something that a lot of guys don't speak on. There's a lot of comments that I read of guys just, women this, women that, the state of the world, blah, blah, blah. The internet, just like the media, paints the world to be much more awful than it really is. There are just a lot of beautiful people out there who mean well. And yes, there are shitty women out there. And when I say shitty, I just mean they're wrapped up in their ego, they're wrapped up in fear, they're wrapped up in selfishness. But just like there's people like you who watch my channel because you have an open heart and you're becoming more interested in operating and transcending the ego a little bit, moving from those higher planes of reality. There's women like that out there too. And you just never know who you'll encounter. So I would encourage you, start experimenting with cold approaching. It can unlock a whole other aspect of your life, and it'll carry over into other areas of your life. You'll start to have this state of fearlessness in other areas. I speak to a lot of guys, even really good-looking guys, who have little to no social skills or the ability to just connect authentically with another human being because they hide behind dating apps. And there are guys out there who get matches, but then they go on dates and it goes terrible because they don't know how to connect with another human being. So cold approaching will also if you can learn how to speak to a stranger and kind of like open up their heart a little bit to where they're willing to speak to you, then when you go on just dates and things like that, it'll be a lot more natural. A lot of guys, man, they get matches, they go on dates, and then the women are just turned off because they can't connect. And so this is something worth cultivating, okay? A little bonus tip for you, since we're kind of talking about dating and things like that. Another way of connecting beyond just the veil of protecting yourself with your digital device is sending women voice memos. You know? Oftentimes guys will get numbers or they'll get matches, and then they'll just send texts to girls. Hey, what are you doing? And the girl just really doesn't have anything to go off of. But if you send a girl a voice memo, hey Sarah, I'm just really tired of texting. I wanted to reach out, send you a voice memo so you can actually see that I'm a human being. Hope your night is going well. We should grab a drink sometime, or coffee, whatever it is that you're into. It just hits different, man. It really does. Something sparks in a woman's mind and heart where it's like, oh, this is a human being. They're so used to these shallow interactions or these digital text interactions. Only what you do not give can ever be lacking. And as men, we need to take the reins. We need to allow ourselves to be a bit more vulnerable and put ourselves at risk of rejection. Even the most attractive men in the world get rejected. I see physically unattractive guys with very beautiful women all the time because they have cultivated a level of confidence. They've cultivated a level of knowing how to connect with another human being. And women are emotional creatures. Yes, being attractive can get your foot in the door, but so many guys have their foot in all kinds of doors, but they can't get it to a deeper level of a relationship, for instance, because they haven't learned how to connect. So, go a little deeper with this stuff. Don't just hang out in the manosphere and the red pill negativity of like women are this, women are that. You can't put all women in the same camp. Just like there's men who are very deeply in ego. They would watch this video and be like, beta male, blah, blah, blah. There's women out there that are the equivalent of that, but then there's also women who are the equivalent of wanting to go deeper. They're more in their heart. They're growing, they're healing. They're on a spiritual journey. So, do some cold approaching, man. It's going to bring some things to the surface. You'll potentially have an ego death experience like you would on a psychedelic trip. There's a lot of parallels to be drawn. So, you don't need plant medicine to get in contact with those deeper recesses of your subconscious. I think that's all I got for you tonight. If you like these conversations, consider joining the Conscious Men community. There's like 100 hours now at this point of recorded past calls, because we record all the calls. You can access them. But you and I can have a direct conversation. The community is small enough to where we can talk. I do one-on-ones, but they're more expensive because my time is short. And so these group calls, it allows for a lot of guys to get in there to have some deeper conversations. So that's all I got for you tonight. You are loved, you matter, and you've barely scratched the surface of what you're capable of. I'll talk to you soon.